Hi everyone, I'm Connor from the team at YCharts. We hope your new year is off to a great start, but before jumping into 2022, the new kind of data we're sharing right now is the most popular pages on YCharts from 2021. We're pulling back the curtain in case you've ever wondered what stocks or ETFs other investors are looking at, or what mutual funds or econ data are being considered by advisors. We have some answers. Before we jump into our top pages and all the exciting data we have to share, let's lay some groundwork around how YCharts actually collected this data. It comes from traffic from two main groups. Number one being advisors who are using YCharts, namely wealth management professionals make up the YCharts user base. There's also just anyone on the internet who's searching for these terms. A lot of our data pages rank very high on Google for terms like Apple PE ratio or Tesla market cap, which brings us to an important caveat to make here. Based on where our pages ranked on Google, we definitely saw different traffic to different pages. So let's say Apple PE ratio ranks number 1 versus number 6, 7th, or 8. That ranking is definitely going to impact the amount of traffic our pages receive. But that said, this data is still really interesting, can still be used to tell us which names and data other people are looking at, and it can inform your approach for 2022. So let's get into it now. Here we are looking at the most popular company pages in 2021 as ranked by unique page views or total traffic to them in the year. We see the Apple and Tesla PE ratios plus a few related metrics for those two stocks. We see US Steel's price was also a popular page. The NASDAQ PE ratio, which is for NASDAQ the company, not the index. And there's AMC Entertainment, shares outstanding, also cracking the top 10. And finally, we see the quote page for Amazon as well as its market cap. So which data here of these top companies is worth a closer look? We're going to zero in on Apple and Tesla's PE ratios because valuations, as you might recall, were a really big talking point throughout the last few years. Even before COVID-19 first impacted the markets in early 2020, many were concerned that these two stocks and their PE ratios, like other big tech and consumer names, were overpriced. Well, PE ratios would go even higher after COVID-19 first impacted markets, but due mostly to strong earnings and also some downward pressure on price, Apple and Tesla's PE ratios have fallen by 25 and 75% respectively. Looking at company data in a different way, let's take a look at the hottest pages on YCharts, meaning those that had the largest page view growth year over year. We see Coinbase, Roblox, and Upstart, all of which IPO'd in 2021 or very late 2020, making our top list. And there's a bunch of data like shares outstanding and market cap for those meme stocks, GameStop and AMC Entertainment. We also see the market cap of a company called CheckCap, which is a medical diagnostics company focused on cancer screening. And so this list is pretty interesting, but once again, how can we talk about 2021's hottest names without talking about GameStop and AMC, right? We all remember the insanity in early 2021 when these names were pulled from the brink of bankruptcy by a couple billion-dollar hedge funds doing their usual leveraged buyout activity. No, that's not exactly what happened. It wasn't a who's who of corporate raiders who propped up these stocks. It was the internet. It was a good old-fashioned uprising or a digital uprising that started on Reddit when people recognized that these names were extremely shorted by institutional investors, so they took matters into their own hands. The effect was an extreme price improvement for both GME and AMC, who in turn capitalized on all that interest by issuing more shares to the public. It became very real all of a sudden to those companies' prospects. You might say this whole thing was a little frivolous, but the share prices for GME and AMC are kind of hanging around still. So will they continue to do that in 2022? Only time will tell. Okay, now let's turn to the most popular ETFs from 2021, as ranked by page views. The Grayscale Bitcoin and Ethereum trusts, which trade under GBTC and ETHE respectively, have been hot pages on YCharts for a while now, and this is mostly due to their discounts or premiums to NAV, net asset value. We also see some popular passive ETFs here, like SPY and the Qs and IWM have cracked the top 10. And we also take note of this ARK Innovation ETF, a well-known name, and its holdings were looked at a lot by advisors and investors throughout 2021. So what are we going to focus on in terms of ETFs? Well, these Grayscale Bitcoin and Ethereum trusts, as their name suggests, are trusts. They operate a lot like other commodity ETFs such as the iShares Gold Trust, IAU, and they actually physically hold the underlying asset which the fund tracks. So while the very noteworthy benefit of GBTC and ETHE is adding crypto exposure within a managed account, a major drawback here is how much their prices swing in relation to the value of the assets they're actually holding, here being crypto assets. So in 2020, both of these were trading at huge premiums to NAV, which means you would have actually overpaid for Bitcoin or Ethereum if you bought into them, either of these trusts at that time. But now in 2021, both funds' prices are at a discount to their net asset value, meaning you might actually be getting a little more Bitcoin for your buck. Another way to look at our ETF data is to see the hottest ETF pages in 2021, those with the largest year-over-year page view growth. ETF pages whose traffic grew the most include 3 newer ETFs, Roundhill's metaverse-focused Meta, the iShares MSCI Asia X Japan ETF, and a collateralized loan obligation, or CLO ETF, from alternative access funds. Next were the dividend and dividend yield for Global X Fund's NASDAQ 100 covered call strategy. And this list is rounded out by ARK Innovation ETF's assets under management and some dividend values for a few passive broad market ETFs. Now, because it's maybe the most interesting ETF on this list, let's take a closer look at that Global X NASDAQ 100 covered call ETF. The ticker is QYLD, kind of like QQQ plus yield. And this ETF tracks an index which measures the performance of the NASDAQ 100 plus the written or sold call options on the NASDAQ 100. Right in its name is covered call, which is a strategy that sometimes goes by the name buy right, because you buy shares in a security and simultaneously you write or sell call options on that same security. This strategy is used to enhance risk-adjusted returns and reduce volatility. Now, QYLD's dividend yield averaged better than 11.5% throughout 2021, and it also pays a monthly dividend, which is pretty attractive. And this explains a lot of the interest in QYLD, as investors have been starved for yield but fearful of volatility in equities. And I think that definitely remains in 2022. Okay, turning away from ETFs, let's look at the top mutual fund pages. Here we see a ton of large cap growth funds. From the likes of Fidelity, Vanguard, T. Rowe Price, and Morgan Stanley, YCharts visitors were clearly very interested in the holdings of these funds, as throughout 2021 and now early 22, a lot of high-flying growth names have sold off considerably. So let's look at the performance for some of these funds right now. And there you have it. 2021 was a rocky year for the likes of Fidelity's Select Biotech Fund and Morgan Stanley's Insight Fund. And that latter one from Morgan Stanley actually fell 20% or more from its most recent high on no less than 4 occasions. Now, that is a lot of volatility. And in more recent memory, despite 4 of these 6 growth funds setting all-time highs in November of last year, they are now anywhere from 6 to 26% off of those highs. And I'm sure you're wondering, as am I and my brokerage account, if 2021 will be any kinder to growth stocks. But let's look at mutual fund data in a slightly different way now, the hottest mutual fund pages on YCharts. And look at all those dividend yield pages. There's a lot of large cap total market funds here, and also making the top 10 for the hottest mutual fund pages are the Neuberger Berman Large Cap Value Fund and its holding page, a fixed income fund from Metropolitan West, T. Rowe Price's New Horizons Fund, and Fidelity's Blue Chip Growth Fund. So what data should we peel back further in this group? Well, continuing that conversation around yields, we saw a lot of dividend data here. We see the dividend yields for 5 of the most popular total market funds on YCharts. And we see also that dividend payments as a percentage of share prices fell consistently throughout 2021 for all 5 of these funds. Most notable perhaps is Schwab's S&P 500 Index Fund, which started the year offering about 25 basis points more yield than its closest competitors, but it finished 2021 about middle of the pack. And finally, let's take a look at the top econ data pages from 2021. So we see the 10-year Treasury rate, 30-year mortgage rate, and U.S. retail gas prices. There's also a few S&P 500 returns indicators here, the CBOE equity put to call ratio, and finally the U.S. inflation rate. You might have expected a lot of these pages to appear across the top econ pages, especially as Treasury rates, mortgage rates, and the inflation rate were all top of mind throughout the past few years, and certainly maybe even more so now with inflation topping 7%. So let's drill in on Treasury rates, the most popular econ page, even of the top 10 in last year. And I've taken that 10-year rate, beefed it up with a 2-year Treasury rate, and I've also added the 10 to 2-year yield spread, which I built in YCharts. So you have to go back to 2019 to see that point at which the 10 to 2-year spread actually inverted or went negative. If you recall, this was another one of those flashing warning signals that investors were pointing to when they said that a market correction is coming. Well, fast forward to March of 2020, they got it in the form of COVID-19. But ever since COVID and the Fed's active stance in its wake, short-term rates have been held near zero and long-term rates have opened up considerably, widening that spread again. But in late 2021 and now early 22, short-term rates are storming back, causing a ton of dominoes to fall, like growth stocks and bond prices all suffering as rates start to pick up. Let's look at more econ data pages, but this time looking at the hottest ones on YCharts, those with the largest year-over-year increase in page views. There's a good amount of overlap here compared to the most popular list, but new here are the US vaccines administered per day, the M2 money supply, perhaps a lot of people wanting to see how much dry powder is on the sidelines, some dollar exchange rates, and some commodity charts, namely looking at uranium and aluminum prices. So what data are we going to peel back a layer further here? Obviously the inflation rate, right? We've had the inflation rate, and we've also added on those retail gas prices. As you've surely seen, year-over-year inflation has moved beyond 7% now, highest level going back to 2000 and even farther back into the past than that. This has had a large effect on consumer prices for things we rely on in our daily lives, namely gasoline. Across the US, motorists are paying $3.40 per gallon, and all the way out west, Californians have the distinct honor of paying $4.60 per gallon of gas. Well, we hope you enjoyed this review of our most popular pages in 2021. Please subscribe for more data and content like this, and let us know, did you perfectly time any of these trends from last year? What names are you watching this year? And where have you and your clients been feeling the FOMO? Let us know in the comments. Thanks.